Hey all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Lloyd Cupiccia. He has the Kosher Dosher blog and also his Facebook page, does a lot of sous vide. He's been doing his blog for a number of years now, does a lot of food experiments. So help me welcome Mr. Lloyd Cupiccia from the Kosher Dosher blog. I'll be right back.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter, sous vide and chilling from fire and water.
Well, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host. And today we have Lloyd from the Kosher Dosher. Lloyd, I forgot to ask you how you pronounce your last name.
Oh, that's an interesting story. So if you look at the spelling, it sounds like Cupiccia, but it's actually pronounced Cupiccio. It's Italian. The A is pronounced with an O, and I wish I could tell you why, but I can't. But Darren, thanks so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate this.
Well, thanks for coming on. I've followed your blog for a long time now, and you do a lot of things that I don't know if I have the patience to do. You do a lot of experimenting with sous vide and other things, not just sous vide, but sous vide's a big part of it. But so let's talk about how did you get started and what got you started in it in the first place?
Well, just give you a little background on me. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Okay. A lot of people refer to me as the big New York Jew because I'm a power lifter. New York City is the melting pot of everything food, okay? And I got first interested in food because of family. You know, family, they cook. And I was born in the 60s, so we didn't hit restaurants very often. And mom and dad cooked, grandparents cooked and stuff. And then I went to the Navy, you know, and left home, and I was 18 years old and started eating out and realized this food sucks. Excuse me, it just is lousy. So I really threw myself into food and stuff like that. And we were up to sous vide cooking. It was interesting in 2000, and I think it was 2006. I was watching Iron Chef America, and Mario Batali's opponent used a sous vide, you know, to cook food. I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm looking at it, and he threw a plastic bag with food in this plastic box, with, as we know, is a polycarbonate container today. But I think they use actually a Polyscience professional unit. And I'm like, what is that? And I think they mentioned the word sous vide once or twice. I think it was Alton Brown. So I started Googling. So this is 2006. What is sous vide? And back then, there wasn't much written about it. And so I started Googling, found it very interesting, played around with a PID controller, rice cooker, crock pot, even a cooler, adding this warm water to it, trying to keep the temperature. And then it was really cool. Douglas Baldwin wrote his now famous website on sous vide, how to sous vide food. And that was everything to me. I read that 3 or 4 times, and I bought my first unit from Polyscience Chef Series. That was my first IC immersion circulator, and from there I just started going forward. And I loved it ever since.
So you're a power lifter. How long have you been doing that?
I've been lifting weights since I'm 17. I'll be 55 in January. I've competed in, a multitude of contests. At one time, I held the United States powerlifting record for bench press for age and weight. Held 2 American records for that. If you go on YouTube, you type in a big NY Jew, I'm everywhere. I got videos and stuff like that, and I've always been known as the big New York Jew because I'm a big guy, you know.
So when did you stop competing in that?
I had an injury. I just set the American record for 501.5 pounds bench press. And also, by the way, I just want to mention to your audience, I was drug tested because I competed in a drug tested federation, USAPL. Keep everything clean. Anyway, so about a year and a half later, I was lifting on the bench. My buddies had 3 spotters. I was doing 4 1/4, and which for me was not much. I could do that 7 or 8 times. And I was about 3 or 4 inches into the rep, and my right pec started to tear. And the weight started falling on me. And as it was falling on me, the tendon stretched out, broke the tendon, broke the bone. Long story short, had major surgery. 2 years later, I was back lifting, of course, and I've had several injuries since then. And I'm still big, I'm still huge. I just can't lift as much. So the most I can bench now is probably 350, 365, which is still a lot for a guy who's almost 55, but it's not benching 535 like I used to. So I still lift, but I don't compete no more.
Yeah, when we start getting older, I'm 54, so I got a bad knee and no ACL and tore up all my stuff, and my back's broken in 3 spots. So I understand we get older, you can't do what we did when we were younger.
Sure. I've had 12 surgeries. I've had double knee surgery, back surgery, labrum surgery, pectoral surgery, rotator cuff surgery. I've had both my triceps. I hit a concrete wall, had surgery. So yeah, I'm done competing. I still lift. I just can't go as heavy.
So now you just like to cook and eat. So
yeah, I've always cooked and eat. I mean, I've been cooking since I'm 17 years old. I didn't get to this level until probably about 25 years ago. I started really taking off because I got really involved in science. Like, what's his name? McGee, The Science of Food. I just read that entire book, fell in love with the science of food, and which kind of got me started on experimentation, actually. I just love food. I like creating food.
Yeah, I'm like a big Alton Brown fan, too, and just...
Oh, love Alton Brown.
I love the reasons why things, and
Meathead
exactly. Too. That's why I like to follow Meathead. I had Meathead on a couple weeks ago, and
I heard that podcast.
I could talk to him for hours on end. Because, it's got to be logical, and especially in barbecue. There's a lot of that traditional. You got to use mustard, on your pork belly or it's like, no, you don't. But
no, you don't. I mean, I think in Texas, all they use, for example, their brisket, salt and pepper. That's it.
Yeah, and that's more of a style. That's not,
it is.
You don't have to just do that, but people do.
Nope, not at all.
Like I tell people all the time, is there's a million ways to cook a million different things, and it's not just one way. I can cook a brisket. People ask me all the time, why would you use sous vide, for brisket, barbecue brisket? It's like, because I can make a barbecue brisket medium rare. You can't do that on a smoker by itself. So,
and what's also really cool, I've done multiple briskets the old-fashioned way on my charcoal Weber Smoky Mountain, which is customized, by the way. And I've done those for 16 to 17 hours. Tending to the charcoal, of course. Or I did a sous vide where I went to bed.
Right. And I tell people, it doesn't replace one cooking method, doesn't replace another. I mean, it's just a different way to do something. And there's benefits to it. So let's talk about the blog. When did you start? So you've always been cooking since 17. Yeah. So let's start talking about the blog.
So it was the early 90s. And like I said, I was in my 20s and just really loving food and cooking. And I found myself wanting to recreate some of my recipes that people really enjoyed. So I started writing a food journal, just writing stuff down. And it was basically for me to kind of like refresh my memory, jog my memory. And then I'm like, crap, computers are getting really good, and Google started coming out with their Google blog. So maybe I should just do it online. That way I'll always have access to it. So I started writing a Google blog, but it wasn't a blog. It was a food journal. It was for me just to take notes. There was no photographs. There's no recipes. There's just basically, little points, like little points out to a sentence, and this is what I did. This is how I did it. There was no list of ingredients, maybe. Then my friends were asking, "Hey, Lloyd, can I have your recipe?" Yes, it's on Google. I'll send you a link. And they're like, "Well, what the hell is this?" I said, "Well, this is my notes." Well, they started asking me all these questions. Like, maybe I should really give some details on my food journal. And then from the food journal, it went to an actual blog where I started writing down recipes and taking photographs. And I'd have people that actually don't know how to cook read them, and I'd ask them, "Do you understand it?" And if the answer was no, I'd go back and rewrite it so the average person could actually replicate what I was doing.
Yeah,
So it just took off from there.
that's great because you started your blog, for yourself to
Yeah.
take notes, but it kind of blossomed into helping others, which
Yes.
kind
Exactly.
of the same thing I did. I mean, I did it to, hey, I know what it was like when I was first getting into, sous vide and stuff. And I'd like to be able to help new people as well. And
Of
I
course.
think that's a better feeling when you can help people learn and learn together. I always, tell people I'm always learning. I don't know everything, and
That's
I
true.
never tell anybody I know everything or that I'm an expert, because I'm constantly, like you, experimenting and trying new things
Yes.
and learning new stuff and listening to other ideas, so
I get a lot out of people. People ask me if they can share my recipe. I'm like, yes, please do that. If I can bring a smile to someone's face, if they can replicate something I did, I think, what was the expression? Imitation is the greatest. I forgot the exact metaphor, but basically, when people try to replicate what you've done, I think that's a huge compliment.
oh,
I love sharing.
yeah, definitely. And you do a lot of stuff. You do a lot of, not just sous vide, but I mean, I've seen you do,
I do everything.
you do a lot of, dry aging
Yes.
experiments and, faux dry aging and
Yep.
all kinds of stuff. And,
There's nothing I have never done with food. Nothing.
well, but there is one thing, because you are the kosher dosher. So,
Right.
so you,
Right.
so how hard is it to keep all that kosher?
That's a great question. So first, I'll give you some background on the word kosher dosher. Okay, so I grew up in New York City, and I don't know the origins, but when I was growing up, if someone asked how you doing, you say, "Hey, everything's kosher dosher." So kosher means proper or fit. Okay, that's the actual Hebrew word. And I didn't start keeping kosher until about 20 years ago. My father's father was Sicilian. Both my parents were Jewish, but my grandfather was Italian. So I grew up basically a melting pot. I ate a lot of pork. I mean, I'm telling you, I ate a lot of pork. I've eaten shellfish before. And about 20 years ago, I changed the way I ate for religious reasons. And I won't get into the actual uh, cooking laws, which are basically kashrut. Those are actually the dietary laws. In Judaism, called kashrut. That's complicated. That's a whole different conversation. But within Judaism, there's different sects, basically, right? And everybody has their own way of keeping kosher. Mine is very simple, and I'll keep it simple for your audience. I don't eat any pork. I don't eat any shellfish. So back to your question, it actually started me it forced me to be more creative because I grew up eating a lot of pork. We're talking pancetta, prosciutto. We're talking everything, every kind of cured meat you can imagine. Gabagool, the different sauces, the Italian food, linguine and clam sauce, all that stuff. So it kind of forced me to do my own version of those same things. So, for example, how do I make my own pancetta? And I'm assuming you know what pancetta is, and so is your audience. So I made veal cheddar. I started making my own veal cheddar using a veal belly, basically the entire side of the animal, and turned it into a pancetta. Did the same thing with duck, same thing with beef. Um, I was forced to create my own kosher um, food. So I took all the traditional pork recipes, gabagool, pancetta, prosciutto, etc., and sausages and salamis, and I used kosher meat to replicate those things.
Yeah, and
So
it can be done, and like I said, that kind of drives
yes,
your creativity
yeah,
and
absolutely,
your experimentation as well. And
yeah. It's like
you can see that when I read one of your blogs, and when you do something, you take really detailed step by step notes and
yes,
pictures, and
because my goal is for someone else to replicate what I did.
And I think that's why I do the YouTube channel. I don't want to have to take 42 pictures and write out like step by step like that.
Oh, I love that. That's the best part.
Yeah.
But what you do on YouTube, I couldn't do. So, but me writing and taking photographs and those details, I love the details. I love the math. I love math. I love coming up with a recipe and then using math to be able to replicate that with percentages. But the kosher thing forced me to be even more creative to replicate those dishes that I grew up on. So I actually created, for example, it's kind of it's an oxymoron, but I call it the Rebbe's ham. The Rebbe is like the head rabbi, right? And I actually used duck. I took duck and I made it taste like ham.
That's amazing.
And since I've eaten ham before, I know what it tastes like. I know what the texture is like. I was able to replicate ham using duck.
Wow.
It's I love this stuff. I mean, I just love everything about it.
That's amazing. So what?
This is fun. This is fun.
So where do you get your creativity from now? I mean, you've kind of done a lot. I mean, do you still try new things? You still looking for?
Well, it's kind of funny, but most guys dream of sex when they're sleeping. I dream of food. Seriously, I just dream of food. I love food that much. But what will happen is what will actually be the catalyst for me coming up with something new is I'll see something on TV and I'll say, well, I could do that, but I could do something better. So, for example, I think it was Kevin Liddell Holmes sent me a link, and he's in your group too, and several other ones. He sent me a link to, I think it was Tasty or Yumly, and they took a chicken breast, they sliced it down the middle, and they put in ham and Swiss cheese, and they made cordon bleu. Okay. I said, wow, that's an interesting way of doing it. Most people, you pound it out, you roll it up, or you slice it in the middle, you butterfly it. I decided that I was going to do it with chicken thighs, and I was going to make a chicken cordon bleu corn dog. And I just did it last night, and I'm going to post it on your website here, rather in your group later on this week. And I took basically chicken thighs. I added schmaltz and gribbins, which is the cracklings after you render the fat off the chicken skin. And I made a paste from the chicken thighs and all kinds of things. So I use it transglutaminase. You know what that is by chance?
Meat glue, yes.
Yes, meat glue, right. And I made a corn dog. I stuffed it with I used turkey, honey cured turkey, Swiss cheese, and Havarti. Rolled it up. I let it age overnight. The enzyme transglutaminase bonded the proteins. I sous vide that. It's a huge process, and then I deep fried it in batter. It was amazing. So seeing someone else do something, it kind of jolts something in my head. Also, when I come across food groups and someone asks a question or someone comes across as this is the only way to do something, I'm like, well, wait, that's not true. And then I'll think about it and I'll write something up on it or contrast several different things and just gets my juices flowing.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like to watch a lot of the cooking shows or those,
yes,
that stuff and see these things. And then you go, hey, you know what? I could probably make that, but I'd put my own little twist on it, or
exactly.
I'm not one that likes to follow, cookbook recipes to the T.
No.
I like to kind of play around with them and put them to my taste. So
exactly. I saw a dish where they used chorizo, and chorizo is pork. It's pork. It's Mexican, basically sausage. I said, well, guess what? I'll make my own. And I made my own using all beef. Yeah, it's just, you see something you want to make and you're like, well, I could do that. I could do something better than that. And you just do it. It's just fun. I love this stuff.
Yeah. And like I said, you don't know what you like until you play around with stuff,
Exactly.
I can taste something in a restaurant and go, yeah, I like this. Okay. But then you can always go, hey, I can tweak it a little bit and probably
exactly.
make it more to my
You gotta
tastes. You know.
exactly like I grew up eating pasta carbonara, right? Love pasta carbonara, and today people make it with bacon, but one of the original versions was using pancetta, or guanciale. So you can make a pasta carbonara with guanciale, which are the jowls of the pig, right? Or pancetta, which is the belly of the pig. So I want to make that. So I made a duck version of the pancetta. I've also taken beef cheeks. It took me 6 months to make this, but I've actually taken beef cheeks and made my own guanciale just so I can make pasta carbonara. It took me 6 months, but I was able to make pasta carbonara with either duck cheddar or beef guanciale.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's love the stuff.
So, what are your favorite foods to play around with?
To be honest with you, this may sound arrogant, but everything. There is not one thing I like over the other. I love it all. From month to month, I'll go from Asian to German to cured meats to making homemade bacons to breads to sous vide to barbecuing to grilling to using a lot of meat glue just to making different salamis and sausages. I love it all. I've made sushi before. I've gotten to sushi making, so I can make sushi. I love it all. There's not one thing I like over the other.
Yeah,
As long as it's creative.
I'm the same way. I like going to, like, when we go on vacation. We went up to the city, this last couple months ago. We went up there, and I love going there because there's so many different styles and kinds of food.
Yes,
and you could eat pizza every single day, for every meal of the day. Have different pizza every time, but you can also get, great different kinds of Asian food.
Absolutely.
Different kinds of, to go to the kosher delis and get some great, stuff there. And there's just so many different kinds of food that you can get just on the same street corner,
Oh, absolutely. Like I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, but my grandmother lived in New York City across the street from Katz Deli. And you might be familiar with Katz Deli. It's very famous.
Yeah, we went there. We go there all the time.
Okay, you've been there. I used to go there every week or two. I mean, I was there all the time. So I grew up on a lot of deli food. So since I can't buy it out here, I live in Salem, Washington, I make my own. But like you, on vacation, for me, it's not really the sights or like I go to Vegas occasionally with my wife or my friends, and I'm not a drinker. I'm not a party. I don't gamble. I go for the food.
Right. Yeah, that's me,
Restaurants.
me too. My son's like that too. It was like his whole thing when we were planning the New York trip because it was for his graduation. We kind of let him pick, and we had been up there a couple years ago, and he said, "I want to go back to New York City, and I want to. Here's what I want to do." He wanted to go to Peter Luger. He wanted to go.
Have you been to Peter Luger? Have you been to Peter Luger?
Oh yeah, we went for his one of his dinners.
Did you go to the one in Brooklyn or Queens? Which one did you go to?
Brooklyn.
Oh, the original.
Yeah.
So you walk in, the hardwood floors, there's still sawdust on there.
Oh yeah, had to wait, for 35 minutes and
the cash or American Express. That's it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was it, but it was an experience for sure. But yeah, that's the thing. There's so many different places there to eat.
Yes,
and
it's the greatest thing in the world. I still like the hot dogs on the street, the Sabret's hot dogs.
Oh yeah, yeah. We got those for lunch one day. We had pizza, 18 different kinds, different ways, and then
of course,
we just every place we went was like I said, we just what do we want to eat today,
Yes. What's really cool about New York City and what I miss is that if you want a particular food, you have 12 to choose from. So, for example, if you wanted Indian food, we got probably 24 different great Indian restaurants to go to. Where in Seattle, I might have 3, or where in New York City, you can go, each little restaurant has their own take on what the food is supposed to taste like. And that's what makes it, actually, for me, more enjoyable.
Well, yeah, even with pizza. I mean, we'd go to one pizza spot that's a totally Napoleon pizza, and that's you go to the next one and it's total New York style, and then which is totally different. Then you can go and get Sicilian, and then you can go get
for me growing up in Brooklyn, we had Frank's, we had Charlie's, we had Peter's, and all at least within, I'd say, 5 miles of the house, and each one was slightly different. And that's what was really cool about it.
Yeah. And then, we go to, Chinatown and you go get the soup dumplings and stuff that you can't get anywhere else,
Yes, and it's all, and I don't use the word authentic as much as the people are actually making it. This is what they grew up on, and that's what they're replicating for you.
Right.
Just love the stuff.
So that's what drives me too. I like barbecue, and then I kind of use it with what I do to show people, because that's what people like to cook at home a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
It's really popular, but I like any kind of food. I mean, I'm the same way. I'll try anything. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she's a little bit more dogmatic as far as that goes.
I'm lucky. My wife will try anything.
Yeah, mine won't, but she likes what she likes, but then again, she'll go and try, and try to,
that's good.
Try to do some stuff. But
my wife's amazing. She'll try anything. Our first date was in '88, and I think that was more of an interview for me. I took her to a restaurant. I wanted to see what she was going to order, and I'll tell you, man, if she didn't like onions and garlic, it's going to be like one date, and only one date. She had to like food. My wife was pretty open to everything. I got real lucky there. It means there's nothing she's never tried with me, so I'm lucky there.
Oh, that's good. Well, we're going to take a little break here, and then we'll be back, and we'll talk a little bit more Be right back. Hey, all, I want to welcome again Inkbird as our sponsor for the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Inkbird has more than just barbecue thermometers and instant read thermometers that I've talked about before. Inkbird just came out with a Wi-Fi sous vide circulator that I've been using for a few weeks now that works pretty good. It has over 1,000 watts of power. It has an app that has many times and temps for meats and vegetables. Also has onboard times and temps for meats and vegetables. Runs really quiet. Fits most regular sous vide containers that are the size of the Innovas. So check it out. Look below. There's a link with a code for 30% off of the Amazon price. That makes it under $60 right now. So check out the Inkbird Wi-Fi sous vide circulator in the description below. Back to our program. All right, we're back with Lloyd from the Kosher Dosher, and let's talk about the experiments a little bit more, because those seem to be one of the bigger things on your blog when you do these different kinds of experiments. Let's talk about some of the ones of your favorite that you've done in the past or that you've got planned.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I've got probably 30 or 40 experiments on my site. So one of the biggest ones for me was the two-stage cooking, where, and I didn't come up with this. I mean, we're talking like modern cuisine. We're talking Douglas Baldwin, going to eGullet, reviewing, reading, and stuff like that. And I think it's in Modern Cuisine, 2011 edition. I think there's only one edition where they talked about basically cooking food at a lower temperature, activate the enzymes that are responsible for basically dry aging. It doesn't replace it, but those enzymes are created faster at the lower temperatures. And I find that fascinating. And I've done a lot of work on that. So people say, what's the benefit? And I'll keep it short, keep it simple. I can take a tri-tip, right? And I can use two-stage cooking method. Warm aging is the word they use often to describe the process. And I'll choose 113, and I'll cook it for 2 to 3 hours at 113, raise it to 133, cook it for 9 hours. Okay? Well, you get the same results if you use 133 and you cooked it for, let's say, 12 to 15 hours, and you get the same exact texture. But the difference is, if you use the warm aging technique with the lower temperature, you actually have less purge in the bag, less moisture loss with the same textural results. So yes, you could do it the regular way, 133 for 12 to 15 hours, or my way, get the same product, but you'll have more moisture using the lower temperature. And I find that fascinating and wonderful to do.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that people can't wrap their head around when they first start looking
Yeah.
at sous vide is, because I get it all the time, especially from the barbecue guys. It's like, well,
Oh, I bet.
because, well, what's the benefit of cooking at 150 degrees instead of
Mhm.
250, for 12 hours? And it's like, well, because the hotter you cook it, the more
Right.
moisture is going to leave, and especially if you're
Right. The muscles squeeze out. They squeeze out. They get tense, and they start forcing out the
right.
moisture.
And you're also cooking in an air chamber, so you're losing all that moisture out
Yep.
into the air, and
You
you're not
are.
going to get it back. One of the things I tell people with pulled pork, especially, is that at least I'm capturing all that moisture,
Absolutely.
and when I'm done
Yes,
pulling
you
it,
are.
I can put it right back into the pork.
Oh, I know. That's amazing, isn't
Yeah.
it? So one of the most fun experiments, was I did a whole turkey sous vide tutorial, and I'll post it on your group too. So that was really fun to do because one, I've never done it before. It's been done in the past, and I won't name who did it, but they did a really bad job. So I saw a very popular, not a group, it's a very popular website. I'll put it that way to you. They did one, a whole turkey sous vide, and they did a bad job, in my opinion. They created an environment for a lot of pathogens to grow. Okay, and I was somewhat disgusted by what I saw because these are actual professionals. Okay, and then I saw a very popular YouTube fan favorite. I won't call them a group, but they're
You can say sous vide everything. You can say it.
sous vide everything. Okay, I didn't want to say it. They did a whole turkey sous vide, and I want to say they did it. I think they did a 20-pound turkey that was stuffed with sausage. I think they did it at, I want to say 170 or 180 for 24 hours. It came out horrible. Now, we know that you cannot sous vide a whole turkey, okay, or any meat that has the diameter of 15 inches. The inside will never get cooked, and if it does, it's probably filled with pathogens because it was in the danger zone probably for 15 hours before it came up to temperature. And they said it was a fail. Well, no kidding, it was a fail, right? And you got people trying to replicate this. So I decided, something, not only can I do it, but I could do this and do it safely and come out flawlessly, which I did. And I won't go into all the details here, but I was able to do a whole turkey sous vide, and it was about aesthetics, being able to serve a whole turkey that was sous vide, and it was more poached than sous vide, to be honest with you. But the temperature was very controlled. It was very precise. I was able to destroy all the pathogens, and it was flawlessly done. And that was a success. I just loved doing that. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, and I've watched, sous vide everything. They're one of my inspirations as well because they, when I first started playing around with it, they were one of the only ones that were actually doing sous vide on YouTube.
Right.
So, and I like some of the stuff that they do some experiments, but a lot of times they kind of take away they don't understand the basic concepts of sous vide sometimes, I think, especially in their earlier videos.
Yes.
So they were just kind of shooting and missing, which I see a lot of people doing. It's like, you got to understand the whole concept of what you're doing first. And
yeah, in addition to not understanding some of the concepts, I thought their take on what is or was not an experiment was off. I don't think they understood actually what an experiment is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember they did a searing experiment where they were contrasting the Searzall versus, I think, a skillet and a grill. Okay. And they found that using the Searzall, who sponsors them, was the best way of doing it because using the skillet and also the grill, it overcooked the meat. Well, because they had bad technique.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's the only reason why it overcooked the meat. You take a piece of meat that's been sous vide, it's been cooked at its optimum temperature. You put it into a screaming skillet. Of course, the inside is going to heat up. So the gradient, you're going to get this huge gradient from the outside to the very, very center. But had they taken that same piece of meat, dunked it in cold water for a few minutes, right, they could have mitigated the overcooking. So it wasn't a real experiment. I mean, it wasn't a real experiment, so I was kind of disappointed. I'm disappointed in a lot of things they do, but I like their voices. I like the editing.
Yeah, and sometimes, I do experiments too that sometimes I go, hey, why am I even doing this? But at least I try, like if I do a searing experiment, I'm seeing not just how it looks on the inside, but how it works overall. Like, the Searsall, I use that thing 3 times and I hate it. I throw it away.
Oh, I love the Searsall fall, Darren. You know what's great for? Nachos. Great for freaking nachos. Let me tell you something. You got a big plate. Like I've taken actual, like 18 by 20 inch freaking, not bowls, but big plates, and I poured on the nachos and the cheese and take my Searsall out and I melt all the cheese. It's great.
Yeah, for that it is. For like searing a steak or a roast, I mean, it takes forever. I mean,
I won't do that.
There's better things to do to use,
But, I'll tell you where I like the Searsall for example. So, for example, I know you're familiar with mechanically tenderized meat, correct? Like a jacquard?
Yeah, because I'm actually doing a video on taking a top sirloin from Costco, because I buy a lot of Costco meat, but I don't buy their pre-cut steaks because they're blade tender.
Right, cryovac, or cryovac, right. Well, I actually wrote an article, and I'll send it to you. I call sous vide and jacquard, mechanical tenderization. And one of the things that people have to realize that if you mechanically tenderize a piece of meat, okay, you're forcing the surface pathogens into the center of the meat. So you're taking some risk. But one way to mitigate that is I take a Searsall, okay? So if I plan on using a jacquard and I don't plan on pasteurizing, I will pasteurize the surface first before using the jacquard. So I take the Searsall, right? I get the meat really, really, really cold. I basically torch the outside. I kill all the surface pathogens, and then I use the mechanical tenderization method.
Well, that way, you don't have to worry about getting it in.
No.
That you're doing it yourself. So yeah,
I'm doing everything myself.
That way, I don't have a problem with it. It's like I said with Costco, you don't know how they.
No, you don't. In fact, have you read the fine label? The Costco's label. Yeah. It says cooked to 160.
Well, I think a lot of them now say like 180.
So, oh my God, they're trying to kill you.
But, and the reason they do that is because they don't wet age their meat at all.
You are correct. In fact, I was talking to a guy who's a distributor, and he said what they normally do is, and it's hit and miss. They kill the animal, you hang it. You're supposed to age it for like 30 days. They break it down and put it in the bags, right? Well, with Costco, sometimes it could be 3 to 2 weeks, 3 days to 2 weeks before it actually hits the shelf. So you can buy something that's prime. It tastes like crap. There's no taste. There's no flavor. It's not tender because the animal was just killed 3 days earlier. So it's really hit and miss on Costco meat. Really hit and miss.
I'm in the process of doing a video that I took a top sirloin and just let it sit in my refrigerator for 2 weeks, and took it out and then cut it up. And that's just to wet age it. Just to hey, it's not dry aging, but it's me taking that. It's actually cheaper. I can cut the steaks as thick or as thin as I want to. I have a lot more control over it than just buying. I don't have to worry about the blade tenderization that Costco does and what they decide to cut them at or anything. So
you're in total control.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about sous vide. So we talked about how you got started in it. So
yeah.
So you've done a lot more experiments, and like the one you talked about where it was the warm aging type stuff.
Yeah.
What else do you like to cook sous vide?
I cook everything sous vide, from turkey, steaks, meats. I've done it all sous vide. So one of the things I like doing, and this is normally around Thanksgiving, people always, not always, but the turkey breast, right? People always overcook the white meat in a turkey. So what I do is I will take off the breast, the skin off the breast of the entire turkey. I will take the turkey breast, I'll take the tenderloins out, okay? I'll inject the breasts with butter. I'll invert the breasts on each other, and I'll use meat glue, and I wrap everything in the turkey skin, okay? And I'll make basically a cylinder, and I will sous vide that. And again, always flawless results. The diameter is the same. It's perfect. But fish, I love sous vide fish. Small little window there. I like about 115 degrees for salmon, for example. Always get consistent results, precision. You can tell somebody who doesn't know how to cook that wants to replicate something you've done. Give them the recipe, tell them the temperature, take it out at this time, and they've just made something amazing. So I'll sous vide everything. Ribs, oh my gosh, what you can do with ribs, short ribs, beef back ribs, everything. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I there's certain things that I don't, but I mean, once people understand what sous vide does, I mean, that's the biggest issue I have. And one of the things I love to show people is not, there's too many people think that sous vide is good for steaks or just chicken breasts and pork chops,
Right.
or they treat it like an Instapot or a George Foreman grill. It's just another, utensil I have in my kitchen, but it's not. It's a method that can be used for so many different things, and it does so much.
A good example is like a chuck roast. Most people will take a chuck roast, right? And they'll throw it in their pot, and they'll braise it for like 6 or 7 hours. And all they've done basically is melted all the gelatin off the meat. They broke it down. It's overdone, and if they went too far, it becomes dry. Where with the chuck roast, I happen to like 136 degrees between 36 and 40 hours, and I'm able to get a piece of meat that comes out relatively medium rare. And it's tender, it's flavorful. It didn't lose a lot of moisture, and it's just an amazing piece of meat. It's a cheap piece of meat too.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the things that really got me, started was chuck and even top round. Top round.
Oh yes,
my wife loves that. She's not she doesn't like fat. She won't eat ribeye. She just doesn't.
Okay. Oh, I love ribeye.
Me too. Gosh. I mean, but she's for some reason she's more like a fillet person, and then. For me to be able to take a top round and turn it into a fillet when I'm only paying $2.99 a pound.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh,
that's our favorite thing that I sous vide is top round.
And I think sous vide was created. I can be wrong, but originally for taking inexpensive cuts and making them taste like fillet, where they become very, very tender and flavorful. Because when you get some of the chuck's got a lot of flavor, ribeye has a lot of flavor. Fillets have no flavor, but they're tender. And sous vide incorporates the best of both worlds, where you get a piece of meat that is very flavorful but also very tender. It just changes how we cook.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about cutting it really thin or against
not at all.
All that stuff that you normally would have to do by cooking it traditionally. Right. And
well, look at tri-tip. Tri-tip, I love tri-tip. I'm the tri-tip king. I make a lot of tri-tip. If you make tri-tip the traditional way, it's not very tender. Even if you go low and slow on a barbecue, it's good. It's delicious. But gosh, when you do it sous vide, it's night and day.
Exactly. Yeah, you can make things a lot different. And like I said, it doesn't replace, if somebody it doesn't replace certain, cooking methods, but it does enhance them. Yeah, that's why I like to use sous vide with barbecue stuff, because it enhances it.
Yes.
Like I said, I just did some short ribs a couple of weeks ago. I made a medium rare, and people go, "Oh, but does that taste the same as when I cook them to 200?" And it's like, no, it doesn't. I said, but that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. For my short ribs, I'll do short ribs sous vide like you. And I'll do them way in advance, and I'll pop them out of the bag, and they have all the fat that's basically glued onto the meat now. And I throw them right on my Weber for a couple hours, at 200 degrees, and I don't think someone can tell the difference whether I did it low and slow or it came out of the sous vide, because they're on my Weber Smoky Mountain for 3 or 4 hours, because they're going in on at 38 degrees. So from 38 degrees up to the optimum sous vide temperature that I use, You just can't tell the difference. They're amazing.
Yeah,
It tastes exactly the same.
and they're more moist, and
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, so that's the thing. It's like, yeah, I try to explain to people, it's not a war against different cooking methods. I mean,
No, not at all.
if you look at it that way,
Although,
you're really shorting yourself, because if all you think that you have to cook a brisket, at a 203 or whatever every time, that's the only.
well, I know that you ran into it with other people, but you get people that, whether it's sous vide or barbecue, it becomes their religion, and they only see one way to do things. So, for example, on barbecue, and not that I've participated in the discussion, but you got pellet grill versus guys that use the offset smoker, where they just use wood, or people that just use charcoal, and it becomes their religion when they start fighting over it. Now that people are using sous vide and barbecue, that's a whole different discussion. Now it seems like they're offended actually. One's not replacing another. It's just that it enhances it.
Yeah, and it's that whole Ford versus Chevy mentality, I think.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, so true.
That's, people, oh yeah, you can only cook barbecue in an offset, wood smoker. You can't use a pellet grill, or
Well, people use words, for example, that's not authentic.
Right.
Well, at what time of the year? What time or what century? So if you want to go back to original barbecue, it was people using, open fire.
Right. Or they
open fire.
You got to dig a pit in the ground and put it in
there. Yeah. You dug a freaking pit in the ground.
You got to wait for lightning to hit a tree,
Oh my God. How far back do you go? Exactly. Or I saw smoked salmon. Someone was complaining about someone smoking salmon. I forgot where I was at. I was reading this, and they were complaining how that's not traditional. I said, well, if you go back far enough, you had Indians taking the salmon, gutting them, butterflying, putting them on vertical sticks, right? While there's a fire behind it, blowing the smoke into the fish. I mean, how far back do you want to go to call something authentic?
Right, exactly.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, I know, and that's exactly. You got to move on. Some people, will get it. Some won't. But at the end
of the day, does it taste good? At the end of the day, does it taste good?
It does, and literally, it opens up options. I mean, I'd rather have options. I don't want to just cook, one thing one way my entire life. I want to be able to. I want to be able to experiment and try new things and put my taste buds to the test and see what comes out better. So I mean.
I think the biggest thing is, for me is I give most of my food away because I do things big. I mean, I'll make 30, 40, 50 pounds of something and I just give it away because I like going big and bringing a smile to someone else's face. They're eating your food and going, wow, how'd you do this? And they're smiling. They're enjoying it. They're sharing it with somebody else. They're breaking bread using your food. I think that is the greatest joy in the world, at least for me.
It is for me, too. I like doing, having groups of people over. And, that's one of my favorite things. And, it's like, hey, we're going to have 30 or 40. I just had 40 college kids over in my house about 2 weeks ago. And nice. I made, 2 different kinds of pulled pork. And I made moink balls and all kinds of
Oh, nice.
Like, I want them to go, hey, I want to go back to Mr. Wilson's house, and
yes,
whatever he's having people over.
Best thing in the world. I had a compliment given by my daughter. It's kind of funny. So I make duck bacon. I make beef bacon, veal bacon, lamb bacon. And my wife was at Costco, and my daughter, I think, was 3 or 4 years old at the time. And she tried one of the samples, and the woman had put bacon inside this potato dish. And my daughter walks away and goes, hey, Mom, I think they made these potatoes with duck bacon. Well, I was like, what are you talking about? Well, she equated what she was eating with my duck bacon. It actually, yeah. She was eating basically pork bacon, accidentally, of course. And she said, Dad, it tastes like your bacon. Well, that's a compliment. Because I ate a lot of bacon growing up, and it was freaking delicious. Right. I just use lamb, bacon, or beef. It was a great compliment. I actually made ribs. It was my daughter's whose was almost 20. It was her third birthday, and I made a bunch of beef back ribs, right? And if you know what you're doing, you can make beef taste like pork. You can, or lamb. And I used all kinds of crazy spices and herbs to kind of replicate the traditional taste of how people taste food. And people go, I thought Lloyd didn't eat pork. This tastes like pork because it had the texture of basically falling off the bone baby backs, and they weren't used to that.
Well,
It's really cool.
Just don't start making vegetables into meat like they're doing now, because I don't.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely a carnivore. I would starve. Oh my gosh, I'm definitely a meat guy. Oh,
And I don't want to make meat taste like vegetables either. So
no, not at all. It's like people try to like what's it called we take tofu, like a tofu turkey.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not getting that.
So what's in the future for you? You still just gonna keep the blog going? You're gonna expand out?
Well, I'd like to expand out a little bit, and not for monetary reasons. It's just that I want to reach other people, other groups. My blog is a Google blog, and I thought about graduating to, let's say, a WordPress blog, but I need to do more research, more reading, and try to understand how to create an actual website. Not the easiest thing to do. My current blog, I've got like 12 to 15 gigs of photographs and information and over 300 posts, and be able to convert that to a WordPress website or blog is not the easiest thing to do in the world, And so I'm looking at it, and right now I have no advertisements on my blog because I like keeping it clean. I don't want the advertisers to distract from the food. So I like to expand. It'd be fun. I would love to do something like that. I don't have the skills or the know how to do that.
Well,
So
I had to self teach. When I started doing YouTube and even this, I taught myself how to do it. And once you're
a natural. I've watched you. You're a freaking natural. Oh my gosh, there wasn't much self teaching there. You're so natural.
You didn't watch my first couple videos. So. It's like anything. It takes practice, and once if you really love it and you passion, what you do, it makes it a lot easier as well. So, and I'm sure when you first started doing your blog, it was a pain in the butt for you for a while.
You're right. I go back and read what I had written and go, wow, that's like third grade. I could have done a better job. I'm not communicating very well, and now I've done a lot better, of course.
Well, and it's just like I talked about with Malcolm Reed, who is a big barbecue guy. He started out, 9 or 10 years ago with YouTube, and we talked about him looking back at some of his earlier YouTube videos, and it's like he can't even watch them, and because he's so smooth. Over 9 or 10 years, you got it down. So
the original guy on TV was Emeril Lagasse. Okay, remember Emeril Lagasse?
I love that.
I love Emeril. Well, I saw some of his earlier videos, on Food Network, and it might not have been Food Network; it might have been someone else. And oh my gosh, night and day. Looking down at the counter, not looking at the camera, talking very, very monotone, no excitement, no body language. And to see him in those old videos to the Food Network where bam, everything's bam, bam. Night and day was just so much fun. And like you said, you got to grow. If you like what you do, you got to grow into what you want to become.
Exactly. And once you get more comfortable, you get better at it. So,
I bet.
And
I bet.
All right. So I think that was great, Lloyd. And say your last name one more time because I don't want to mess it up.
So it's Lloyd A. Anthony Cupiccia.
Cupiccia, but it's spelled with an A.
Yeah, spelled with an A. And I could not tell you why. But it's Kosher Dosher.
Kosher Dosher blog. I'm going to put a link down in the description below of both the blog and you have a Facebook page as well. So.
And I'll make sure I'll send you the links too, Darren. That way, I'll just send you a link also.
Yeah,
for both.
That's good. I'll do that. I'll put that in the description below, but check it out because he's got a lot of really great, all different kinds of food experiments, but a lot with sous vide, a lot with curing meats, all
Yes.
kinds of different stuff that if you're interested in experimenting and playing around with different types of foods and seeing what you can do, Lloyd's blog is one of the, it's a must. And he is very,
And
very
Darren,
detailed and lots of pictures.
thank you. And if you like ice cream, I've done some crazy freaking ice cream combinations.
And
Love
And
ice cream.
Lloyd will be posting up some of his blog posts in the Fire and Water Cooking group
Oh,
on
great
Facebook as
group.
well. So,
I'll be doing that
thanks
too.
for joining me, Lloyd. I appreciate it, and I'll be talking to you soon. I'll probably have you on another time.
That'd be
We'll
great,
talk. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate
No
it.
problem. Thanks again, guys. I'll talk to you again on the next Fire and Water Cooking podcast. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Fire and Water Cooking podcast. I want to thank Lloyd Cupiccia from the Kosher Dosher blog for joining us. Make sure you check out his blog listed in the description below. Make sure you check out Inkbird products, also listed below. Check out the Fire and Water Cooking channel on YouTube, Fire and Water Cooking on Facebook. We have a page and a group. Follow us on Instagram and join us again at the next Fire and Water Cooking podcast. See you next time.